Other ways to produce quality animation faster. Yeah, I tell you what. I mean, look what we were doing. 750 frames. And the quality isn't film quality, but I think it's pretty good for what we were doing. And a lot of that was workflow. A lot of that was doing the blocking first. And actually, let me take an even bigger step back. Planning first. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I made sure that everyone would, listen to their shot, plan it out, maybe do some video reference. We didn't do a lot of video reference for that. We did it for some more difficult things. And then some animators started to do it and really liked it, so they kept doing it. But planning was a big thing. I had one animator that when I would pitch his shots, his would usually be earlier in the sequence, and then he would go back to his desk and start working. And I remember this one time I was done pitching. It was probably like an hour later, and he's already in Maya working on the shot. And I said, "Dude, what are you doing?" He goes, "Man, I gotta animate the shot. I gotta do this." And I said, "Wait a minute, but you don't understand that when you're planning, you're actually working on your shot. Because I feel like if you hurry up and just, oh man, I got a deadline, I've got to do this really quick, what happens is you get to this point, right? You get to a certain point and you go, what am I doing? How am I going to finish this shot? What am I going to do here? Oh my God, it's Thursday and it's due tomorrow. How am I going to, you start freaking out. But if you take the time at the beginning to really plan your shot, and I mean really plan, even to the point where you say, I always use a stopwatch, and there's an animation timer that you can use online too, that you can go through and actually say, and I would do this, I mean, it's like hitting a space bar. I would visualize it in my head. All right, here the character is walking up to it, and he does there at that frame. And I would look, okay, 14 frames. All right, let's do it again. I'd think about it. All right, 12 frames. All right, that's kind of, and I'd do it one more time. I'd always do it like 3 times to find the right frames. And then I'd write it down, 14 frames to do that. All right, he lifts this up and it takes 6 frames. I would be that meticulous with it. I mean, even if my drawing skills aren't that great, I mean, I can draw circles really well, but anything else, not so much. If you see a lot of my drawing, I mean, I got actually pretty good when I was doing, a ton of the, what I was saying about doing the storyboards, basically. I got pretty good at that, but in general, my stick figures are about it. And if you see them, most of them don't include legs because, hey, it looks pretty cool. And then I add the legs and the proportions all off. So I don't I stay away from that, but I write a ton of notes. So I'll say move left hand from frame 50 to 58. I mean, it's very specific. And so basically it's like a floor plan. And that doesn't take very long. And I look at it and I say, okay, here's exactly what I'm going to do. So now I feel like I'm done with my shot mentally. So all I got to do now is put it in the computer. And what I used to do is I would get to that point and I would jam music and I would just crank it. So I'd go through that blocking first, and the faster you can get that blocking, and especially if you can get to the director and get that approved, you're half the battle's done already. And so yeah, that'll really speed you up by doing that. And then going through, like we talked about the blocking plus and the polish, all those parts will help you become even faster. And yeah, it's pressure filled for sure. I mean, we also did stuff on the television show that we did like we try not to have that many characters and shots. We would go to medium close up so that you wouldn't see their feet. They're walking, so you don't see their feet. That kind of stuff. I like to do more complicated camera works. Like the question that Keith, I think that you had about cameras is that animators will work with the camera a little bit. I don't know how it works like at Pixar or anything like that, but what we did was, we had a layout team, and then if the animators had to make some adjustments, they could. If they were small, if they were bigger, they would definitely come to me. But I left it up to them. Like, hey, if you want to give them a little bit more headroom, you want to pull back a little bit, that's totally fine. But your cameras will usually, at least with the placement and everything, will already be finished for you. So I think does that kind of Kyle, does that kind of help you with that question a little bit?
Yeah. I don't know. I usually plan my shots. I don't know, pretty well, but I just don't know like the ratio of what I would normally what would be done in a production environment because I've never really been in one, right? So I'm like I've like once I start working, I'm a little bit worried about like getting in there and you know, at Animation Mentor, I would have we did a shot for 3 months, like one shot, right?
Right.
That acting shot,
Yep.
and like I we had like 2 weeks or something like that to plan, and I know obviously I would never have that in a production
Yeah.
environment. So like I
Yep.
probably would have to produce that kind of quality uh, in like 1 week.
Yeah.
The same, yeah. So like that's mainly what I'm worried about. And so like what would be the ratio? Do you think of like how long would you spend on like a 200 frame shot? How long would you spend on planning?
Planning, I would probably only do. Let's see, because what I like to do is, okay, if it's in a production environment, there's one step that you don't have to do, which is the character. The very first thing, and I'm in my course in AnimFlow, we actually take one whole week and talk about character because the more that you can get into your character, the more that you can understand that character, the better performances that you can get. And even if you work on like with Neutron or if you work on a film or anything like that, the kind of the who, what, when, where, why, and everything like that's already taken care of. So you know that your character has a limp and that he's afraid of snakes and that he loves to eat popcorn, all that kind of stuff. But I think the more that you know that, you don't have to invent it. If you're in your own shot, you kind of have to invent that. And the whole purpose for me for doing that is getting into your character. And so you're not going to lift a chair or you're not going to run across the room or you're not going to say a line the same way. You're going to say it different than your character would. So you want to make sure that you understand that character first. And so if you're brand new, like this is your very first shot with this character, I would spend about an hour understanding that character and really thinking about it. And literally like this, thinking about the character, maybe writing down some notes about them, and figuring out kind of how they would, even before you hear your audio shot, before you hear the audio, so that
Hmm.
you'll get more into them. Because here's the thing: if you know that this person's angry and is kind of shy and agitated, that's gonna, no matter what you hear now, whatever your audio is gonna be, you're starting to think of it with that character in mind. There'll be little things that you'll hear in the audio that you'll add to it. But if you have that character already, he might be a little bit agitated like this, and now you're thinking of him like that. Then you hear the line, and what that does is that makes such a much better acting choice. And that's a ton of the. And I got to tell you, I think that is a ton of the work. Is because here's what happens. Okay, normally you might hear the audio first, and then you're like, what the hell am I going to do? Okay, the director said to do this, now I'm going to do this, and you start thinking, and then you're just sketching or whatever, and you might even get to a point where it becomes Wednesday and say, oh man, I got a better idea. And what I like to say is understand everything up front. So if I spend maybe an hour on the character, let's talk about the planning part. Then it depends. So you say like 200 frames. Now let's make it 240. So
Okay.
it's 10 seconds. I might say maybe 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours on that. And really, because I'm knowing what my performance is going to be, but my planning is also going to be my video reference or doing a lot more drawings or a lot more notes. And I'm
Hmm.
going to be very specific on that. So let's say that does take 4 hours. So there's half of your day right there. And quite honestly, the other half is blocking. And you might even be able to do blocking in 2 hours, but let's just say it takes 4 hours. So now
Hmm.
your first day, you've got your planning and your blocking done. Okay, so now you're done on that first day. The second day is, first, if the director sees it, any changes, but going into the blocking plus. And so I think that blocking plus would definitely take, like, say that you did the blocking on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday would be polished. But here's what I'd also say is that Tuesday and Wednesday and half of Thursday would be on blocking plus. I put a lot more time in my blocking plus and polish.
Hmm.
I remember first shot that I did for the Neutron film. I put so much into my blocking plus, and then when I polished it, and I splined it, and I didn't show him finish. I said, well, here's the work in progress. It was just right after that. He goes, oh man, it looks really great. Spend the next day or two polishing, and I'm thinking, day or two. This is going to be done in 2 hours, dude. And literally I did. I mean, I finished it in like 2 hours. He goes, oh man, that's great. And it's like, yeah, because I think the mindset was, all right, cool. Now you finished that stage. Now spend 2 days polishing. It's like, why? You know,
Yeah.
so I put all the work in the blocking plus, so I didn't have to put that much in polish. I went through that whole steps of what I did in polish, and then the last thing is adding secondary action, and and that's where I only focus on little things. Like that kind of stuff. Secondary action also is lip sync. In the AnimFlow course, what I do is we don't do lip sync until the very last week, because here's the way I look at it: is lip sync is one of those things where really easy to do, kind of. And for us as animators, that we're like, look at the animation, look at the mouths moving, look how cool that is. And you're like, yeah, that's great, but the body sucks. It's terrible, but the mouth's moving. I would rather it the other way. I'd rather let's get a really great performance, and if the lip sync is okay, it's still going to look awesome. I mean, lip sync, you can't really mess it up unless it's off sync. That's really the worst part. But I look at it as icing on the cake. Let's make sure that cake is really tasty first, and then we'll put some really good icing on it. So I don't spend that much time. So I think that if you break your week kind of like that, that first day of planning and blocking, you might even see that you're, once you start getting up to speed and getting faster, your blocking will be even faster. So and then the blocking plus, that's why I really would take that Tuesday, Wednesday, and half the day Thursday, and then do polish on Thursday and Friday, and there you go. Even 200 frames. Because if you think about it, if you're going to spend, and I'm only talking 8-hour days, by the way, you can do more. And and I know the thing is like, man, I'm in a groove, and then you look up, and all of a sudden it's 10 o'clock at night. You're like, oh man, I didn't even realize. Um, so that could happen, but I'm still saying that when we did 750 frames, we had guys that were working less than 50 hours. I mean, one guy was doing 40 hours, and he was cranking out some great, great stuff. So we were doing all right with that. So
Cool. Awesome.
cool.
Thanks, Mike.
Sure, sure.